Captain Lee Min-ho stared at the red warning message that covered his entire screen. The words were written in 12 different alien languages, but the meaning was the same in all of them. Verdania 7 was a death world. No one was allowed to land there. No one was allowed to even get close. He looked out the window of his ship at the planet spinning slowly below them. From space, it looked beautiful. Green and red trees covered the entire surface like a thick blanket. 3 small moons moved around the planet in perfect circles. White clouds drifted across blue oceans. It looked like the kind of place where people would want to live. But looks could be wrong. "Captain, the scans are complete," said Dr. Park Ji-soo as she walked onto the bridge. She was the ship's science officer and the smartest person Min-ho had ever met. She could look at a planet and tell you everything about it just by reading numbers on a screen. Min-ho turned away from the window. "What did you find?" Ji-soo put a data pad on the table between them. "It's worse than the reports said. The air has poison spores that can kill most species in hours. The plants on the ground eat metal. The animals are bigger and meaner than anything we have on Earth. And storms hit the surface every few days with winds strong enough to flip our ship. Anything else?" asked Chief Engineer Kim Tae-hyung as he joined them. He was a big man with rough hands and a smile that never went away, even when things looked bad. "The gravity is 1.3 times Earth normal," Ji-soo continued. "The temperature changes 40 degrees between day and night, and the ground is covered with creatures that the computer says are too dangerous to classify." Tae-hyung laughed. "Sounds like fun." Navigator Choi So-min looked up from her control panel. "The Galactic Council has 3 different warning systems running around this planet. Any ship that gets too close gets an automatic message telling them to leave. The fines for landing here start at 1 million credits. "Has anyone ever tried to live here?" Min-ho asked. 3 different species," Ji-soo said, reading from her notes. "The Zentari tried 50 years ago. They lasted 2 months before they gave up and left. The Hive Collective sent 1,000 drones 20 years ago. Half of them were destroyed in the first week. The survivors came back with reports of flying creatures that could cut through metal with their claws. And the third species?" The Machine Union built a fully sealed base on the surface 12 years ago. It was made of the strongest materials they had. The base lasted 6 days before something dissolved the walls from the outside. Min-ho walked back to the window. The planet looked so peaceful from up here. But he knew that 50 of Earth's best and bravest people were counting on him to find them a new home. They had traveled for 6 months to get here. They had left everything behind. On Earth to be part of humanity's first colony in the Outer Rim. Other human colonies had been built on safe planets, worlds with clean air and calm weather and friendly animals. But those worlds were in the inner systems, close to Earth and close to the aliens who watched everything humans did. Out here in the Outer Rim, there was freedom. There was space to grow and build and become something new. There was also danger. "Captain," said Communications Officer Song Hana from her station, "I'm getting a message from the Council. They want to know why we're still here." Min-ho didn't answer right away. He was thinking about the 50 people sleeping in the ship's living quarters. Engineers and doctors and farmers and teachers. People who had given up safe lives on Earth to build something new among the stars. They trusted him to find them a home. "Sir," Hana said again, "tell the Council we're having engine problems," Min-ho said. "We need to run diagnostics before we can leave." "That will buy us maybe 2 days," said So-min. 2 days is enough. Medical Officer Yoon Dae-ho walked onto the bridge carrying a cup of coffee and looking tired. "The crew is asking questions, Captain. They want to know if this is really our new home." Min-ho looked around at his officers. These were good people, smart people, people who had followed him across half the galaxy because they believed in what they were doing. They deserved to know the truth. "The Council says this planet will kill us all," he said. 3 different species have tried to live here and failed. The air is poison. The ground is covered with monsters. Storms happen every few days that can destroy buildings. But, Tae-hyung said with a grin, but humans are not like other species, Minho continued. We don't give up when things get hard. We find ways to survive where others can't. We make homes in places others won't even visit. He pointed at the planet below them. Look at those trees. Some of them are a kilometer tall. The scans show they're hollow inside. While other species tried to fight this planet, maybe we need to work with it. Jisoo looked at her datapad again. You want to live in the trees? Why not? The warnings all talk about the dangers on the ground. But what about up high? What about in the air above the storms and the monsters? Survival specialist Kang Ji-won had been quiet until now, but she stepped forward with interest in her eyes. The trees are old, really old. They've survived everything this planet can throw at them. If we could get inside them, build our homes inside them, we'd be part of the forest instead of fighting against it. Tae-hyung finished. Minho nodded. Exactly. Other species look at a death world and see death. Humans look at a death world and see a challenge. It could work, Jisoo said slowly. The trees would protect us from the storms. The height would keep us away from the ground predators. And if we can figure out how the trees resist the poison spores, we could build the first tree city in the galaxy, Somin added. Minho looked around at his team. He saw excitement replacing fear. He saw curiosity replacing doubt. He saw the same spirit that had driven humans to explore every dangerous place on Earth and then reach for the stars. So what do you say? He asked. Ready to prove the galaxy wrong about what humans can do? The answer came back as one voice from every person on the bridge. Yes, sir. The first drop of acid rain hit engineer Kim Tae-hyung right on his helmet. He watched as the metal started to bubble and smoke where the drop had landed. Within seconds, a small hole appeared in the protective coating. Everyone inside the shelter, now! Captain Lee Minho shouted over the sound of rain hitting their temporary camp. The 12-person landing team ran for the emergency shelter they had set up on their first day. Through the clear walls, they watched their equipment slowly dissolve in the green-tinted rain. Dr. Park Jisoo sat at her portable lab station, looking at samples under a microscope. The rain isn't just acid, she said without looking up. It's full of tiny organisms that eat metal and plastic. They're everywhere in the air. How long until they eat through our shelter? Asked Navigator Choi Somin. Maybe 6 hours. Medical Officer Yoon Dae-ho was treating Communications Officer Song, Hana for a cough that had started 2 days ago. Even with their air filters, the poison spores were getting through. 3 other team members were showing early signs of the same sickness. We need to get off the ground, Minho said. How long would it take to reach the trees? Survival specialist Kang Ji-won looked at her map. The nearest big tree is 2 kilometers away, but we would have to cross 3 streams and get past whatever made those claw marks we found yesterday. The claw marks were 4 meters long, Tae-hyung said. Whatever made them is bigger than our shuttle. The rain stopped after 4 hours, but the damage was done. Half of their electronic equipment was ruined. Their backup food supplies had been contaminated. Worst of all, the landing beacon that would guide rescue ships to their location was now just a pile of metal soup on the ground. We're on our own, Minho announced to the team the next morning. No one is coming to save us. We make this work, or we die trying. Dr. Jisoo had worked all night studying samples from the forest. I think I found something important, she said, spreading data sheets on the table. Look at these tree bark samples. They're completely resistant to the acid rain and the metal-eating organisms. She held up 2 pieces of bark. One was from a small tree near their camp. The other was from a giant tree they had seen in the distance. The small tree bark dissolves in the acid, just like our equipment. But the bark from the big tree doesn't even change color. What makes it different? Tae-hyung asked. The big trees produce a chemical that kills the organisms in the rain. They've been fighting this poison for millions of years. They know how to win. Tae-hyung studied the bark samples. Can we make this chemical ourselves? Maybe. But it would be easier to just live inside the trees. They already have the protection we need. That afternoon, Tae-hyung began preparing for the climb of his life. The target tree was 800 meters tall and 300 meters wide at the base. His equipment included climbing ropes, metal spikes, and a cutting laser for making handholds. In the bark. Remember, we're not trying to hurt the tree, Jisoo told him. We want to work with it, not against it. Make small cuts. See if the tree tries to heal them. If it does, that's good. It means the tree is still alive and healthy. Kang Ji-won would go with him. She had climbed mountains on 6 different planets and knew more about survival in dangerous places than anyone else on the team. If something goes wrong up there, don't try to be a hero, she told Tae-hyung. Just get back down alive. The first 100 meters were the hardest. The tree's bark was tough and slippery. Strange insects flew around them, some as big as birds. Tae-hyung could hear larger creatures moving through the forest below, but he didn't look down. At 200 meters, they found the first opening. It was just a crack in the bark, but it was wide enough for a person to squeeze through. Tae-hyung shined his light inside and couldn't see the back wall. This could be it, he said into his radio. We're going in. The space inside the tree was larger than Tae-hyung had hoped. The walls curved up and around like a natural room. The floor was soft and dry. Most importantly, the air inside was clean and fresh. No poison spores, Ji-won reported, checking her scanner. No acid. No metal-eating bugs. This space is completely protected. They spent 2 hours exploring the hollow space. It was big enough for their entire landing team with room to spare. There were natural shelves in the walls where they could store equipment. Water dripped down from somewhere high above, collecting in small pools that were safe to drink. It's perfect, Tae-hyung said. The tree is taking care of us. The climb back down was faster but more dangerous. A storm was coming, and the wind was getting stronger. Halfway down, they had to wait for an hour while something large moved through the forest below them. They could hear it breathing, but they never saw what it was. When they finally reached the ground, the rest of the team was packed and ready to move. The acid rain had started again, and their shelter was beginning to leak. We move everything up the tree tonight, Minho decided. All our supplies, all our people. We don't come back down until we have to. The ascent took 6 hours. They used ropes and pulleys to move their supplies. Song Hana documented everything with her camera. Yoon Dae-ho helped team members who were afraid of heights. One by one, 12 humans climbed up into a tree on a planet that was supposed to kill them. At dawn, they were all inside the hollow space that Tae-hyung and Ji-won had found. They were 300 meters above the ground, surrounded by walls that had protected this tree for thousands of years. Outside, acid rain fell on the empty forest floor. Inside, humans were building their first home among the stars. Day 8 on Verdania 7, Somin reported to the orbiting ship. The surface is exactly as dangerous as advertised. But we're not on the surface anymore. We're going up. Looking out through a gap in the bark, Minho watched the sun rise over the forest canopy. They had survived the first week. Now the real work would begin. They had to turn this hollow space into a home. They had to prove that humans could not only survive on Verdania 7, but build something beautiful here. The jungle planet had tested them with poison and acid and monsters. But humans had done what humans always did when the universe tried to kill them. They had found a way to live anyway. 3 months after climbing into their first tree, the humans had built something that amazed even themselves. Engineer Kim Tae-hyung stood on a bridge he had built between 2 giant trees. The bridge was made from tree branches and metal cables, hanging 40 meters above the forest floor. Below him, acid rain fell on empty ground. Above him, sunlight filtered through green leaves. Around him, his friends were building the first tree city in the galaxy. The water system is working perfectly, reported Medical Officer Yoon Dae-ho as he walked across the bridge. The trees pump water up from deep underground. We just had to learn how to tap into their system without hurting them. Dr. Park Jisoo had made that discovery in her second month on the planet. She had found that the giant trees were not just plants. They were complex living systems that moved water, air, and nutrients through tubes inside their trunks. By connecting their equipment to these natural systems, the humans could get everything they needed without fighting the forest. "How many people can we support now?" asked Captain Lee Min-ho as he joined them on the bridge. "Our current setup can handle 50 people comfortably," Tae-hyung said, "but I have plans for expanding to 5 more trees. If we connect them all with bridges and platforms, we could support 200 people." Navigator Choi So-min looked up from her communication equipment. "Speaking of more people, we have visitors coming. A Zentari trade ship just asked permission to dock with us." This was the moment they had all been waiting for. Word of the human tree city had spread through the galaxy. Traders and explorers were starting to talk about the crazy humans who had built a home on the death planet that no one else could survive. "Tell them they can dock at the main platform," Min-ho said. "But warn them about the acid rain. They'll need protective suits if they want to visit the ground level." The main platform was Tae-hyung's greatest achievement. He had built it around and through the crown of the largest tree in their settlement. Ships could land there and connect to the tree city through a series of enclosed walkways. It was 300 meters above the ground and completely protected from the planet's dangerous weather. Communications officer Song Hana had documented every step of their construction process. Her videos showed humans working alongside the trees instead of fighting them. When they needed to cut into the bark, they used Dr. Jisoo's special tools that sealed the cuts immediately. When they needed to hang bridges between trees, they attached the cables to branches that were already strong enough to support the weight. "The aliens think we're crazy," Hana said, reviewing the messages she had received from across the galaxy. "But they also think we're amazing. 3 different news networks want to send reporters here." Survival specialist Kang Ji-won had expanded her scouting to include the entire forest around their settlement. She had found 12 more giant trees that could support human homes. More importantly, she had learned to communicate with some of the planet's wildlife. "The flying creatures aren't trying to hunt us," she explained to the group. "They're just curious. I've been leaving them gifts of food, and now they help me spot dangerous animals from above. The big ground creatures stay away from the trees during the day, so we're safe as long as we don't go down there at night." The Zentari trade ship arrived during the afternoon, when the sky was clear and the wind was calm. Captain Min-ho met the alien delegation on the main platform, wearing his best uniform and a smile that showed how proud he was of what his people had built. The Zentari captain was a tall, thin alien with silver skin and large black eyes. His name was Vexitar, and he had been trading in this part of the galaxy for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like the human tree city. "This is impossible," Vexitar said, looking around the platform. "My people tried to build on this planet 50 years ago. The acid rain destroyed our equipment in days. The ground creatures killed 6 of our colonists. How are you not only surviving, but building permanent structures?" "We learned to work with the planet instead of fighting it," Min-ho explained. "The trees already knew how to survive here. We just had to figure out how to become part of their system." The tour of the settlement took 3 hours. Vexitar and his crew walked through living spaces carved into tree trunks. They saw workshops where humans made tools from materials the trees provided. They visited Dr. Jisoo's laboratory, where she was developing medicines from forest plants. They ate lunch in a dining hall that was built into a natural hollow in a tree trunk, with windows that looked out over the endless green canopy. "We want to establish regular trade with your settlement," Vexitar said as the tour ended. "You have access to biological materials that don't exist anywhere else in the galaxy. My people would pay good prices for samples of your tree medicines and protective compounds." "What do you have that we need?" Min-ho asked. "Metal alloys that won't dissolve in your acid rain. Electronic components that can resist the corrosive atmosphere. Construction materials that will make your bridges and platforms even stronger." The trade agreement was signed that evening, making the human settlement the first official colony on Verdania 7. As the Zentari ship prepared to leave, Vextor made a promise that would change everything. "I will tell every trader in this sector about what you have built here," he said. "Within 6 months, you will have more visitors than you can handle." After the ship left, the 12 original colonists gathered on the main platform to watch the sunset. The sky turned orange and purple above the forest canopy. 3 moons rose in the distance. Somewhere far below, the dangerous creatures of Verdania 7 moved through the darkness. But up in their tree city, the humans were safe and warm and proud of what they had accomplished. "What do you think?" Minho asked his team. "Ready for more visitors?" "Bring them on," Taehyung said with his usual grin. "We'll build this place as big as they want to come." The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was called because of a video that had been seen across 20 star systems in just 2 weeks. Counselor Zethra of the Wise Builders projected the impossible images onto the great screen for all to see. The footage showed human children playing on platforms built between massive trees. It showed alien traders walking through markets suspended hundreds of meters above a deadly forest floor. Most shocking of all, it showed families living comfortable lives on a planet that had been marked as forbidden for over 50 years. "This is Verdania 7, Zethra announced to the council chamber. "The Death World, the planet where 3 different species have failed to establish colonies. The world we banned from settlement 12 years ago." The council members stirred uneasily in their seats. Counselor Vextar of the Hive Collective leaned forward in his chair. "Those are humans in the footage. How many of them are there?" "Current. Estimates suggest over 200 people," Zethra replied. "They call their settlement New Canopy. Trade ships are visiting regularly. They have established a working economy based on biological materials that exist nowhere else in the galaxy." Counselor Yentha of the Machine Union stood up slowly. His mechanical body made grinding sounds as he moved. "If humans can thrive on Verdania 7, what does that mean for our assessment of other forbidden worlds? We have classified 347 planets as too dangerous for colonization. How many of those classifications might be wrong?" The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. For centuries, the Galactic Council had been the authority on which worlds were safe for settlement. They had sophisticated computers and millions of years of collective experience, but humans had just proven that all of that knowledge might be incomplete. "We must investigate this situation immediately," declared Counselor Mortek of the Star Wanderers. "If these humans have truly established a permanent settlement, we need to understand how they did it." Dr. Park Ji-soo received the council's request for a formal inspection while she was working in her laboratory. She had been developing new medicines from forest plants when Communications Officer Song Hana brought her the message. "They want to send an official delegation," Hana explained. 12 counselors and their staff. They want to see everything we've built and understand how we're surviving here." "When do they arrive?" Ji-soo asked. 2 weeks. Captain Lee Minho called a meeting of all the settlement leaders that evening. The original 12 colonists gathered in the council chamber they had built in the heart of the largest tree. Through the windows, they could see the lights of their city glowing among the branches. "This is what we've been working toward," Minho said. "Recognition from the Galactic Council means we're no longer just survivors hiding on a forbidden world. We're official colonists with rights and protections under galactic law." Engineer Kim Tae-hyung was excited about showing off his construction projects. "I want to take them on the full tour, the bridge network, the water systems, the landing platforms. Let them see what human engineering can do when we work with nature instead of fighting it." Navigator Choi Soman was more concerned about the political implications. "If they recognize us as a legitimate colony, other humans will want to come here. Are we ready for that kind of growth?" "We've been planning for expansion since month 2, said survival specialist Kang Ji-won. "I've identified 17 more trees that can support major construction. We could house 1,000 people within a year if we need to." Medical officer Yundeho had been treating not just humans, but also alien visitors who came to trade. The council delegation will include several species that have never been exposed to our protective compounds. I'll need to prepare special medical protocols for their visit. The 2 weeks passed quickly. The settlement prepared for the most important inspection in human colonial history. Song Hana worked with her media team to document everything perfectly. The children practiced their alien language skills. The adults made sure every system in the city was working at peak efficiency. When the council ships arrived, they brought more than just the official delegation. 3 news organizations had followed them, along with trade representatives from a dozen different species. The main landing platform was busier than it had ever been. Counselor Zethra was the first to step off the council ship. She was an elderly alien with blue skin and wise eyes who had been studying dangerous planets for over 200 years. She looked around the landing platform with obvious amazement. "The reports were accurate," she said to her assistant. "They have actually built a functional city in the trees." The inspection tour lasted 3 days. The council members traveled by cable car between different sections of the settlement. They visited workshops where humans made tools from living wood. They saw laboratories where alien and human scientists worked together to develop new technologies. They watched human children playing alongside young aliens who had come with their trader parents. On the 2nd day, they witnessed something that had never been recorded before. During an acid rainstorm, the council members watched from inside the protected tree city as the forest floor dissolved into toxic soup. But the trees themselves remained untouched, and the humans inside them continued their normal daily activities. "How do you protect your children from the psychological effects of living in such a dangerous environment?" asked Counselor Mortek. "They don't see it as dangerous," Minho explained. "To them, this is just home. They know the rules. Stay in the trees during acid rain. Don't go to the forest floor alone. Respect the wildlife. Follow those rules, and this is one of the safest places in the galaxy." The most impressive moment came on the 3rd day when Dr. Jisoo presented her research to the Council's scientific committee. She had identified 37 different compounds produced by the forest that had medical applications for multiple alien species. Her team had developed treatments for diseases that had plagued some species for generations. "We estimate that similar research on other forbidden worlds could produce medical breakthroughs that would benefit the entire galaxy," she said. "Humans have the ability to adapt to extreme environments. With council support, we could establish research colonies on worlds that have never been properly studied." As the inspection concluded, the council members gathered for their final meeting with the human leaders. Counselor Zethra spoke for the group. "The Galactic Council officially recognizes New Canopy as a legitimate human colony," she announced. "Verdania 7 is hereby reclassified from Forbidden World to Special Research Zone, with humans as the recognized governing species." The decision was broadcast across the galaxy that same day. Within hours, applications for immigration to New Canopy were flooding the settlement's communication systems. Scientists from 20 different species requested permission to establish research partnerships. As the council ships prepared to depart, Minho stood on the main platform watching the sunset paint the forest canopy in brilliant colors. In 2 years, his people had gone from desperate refugees to recognized pioneers. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand that humans didn't just survive impossible places, they made them into something beautiful. The Galactic Council's inspection team had expected to find a struggling outpost clinging to survival on a death world. Instead, they discovered a thriving civilization that challenged everything they thought they knew about dangerous planets. Counselor Zeftos of the Machine Union was famous throughout the galaxy for his hatred of biological environments. His mechanical body was designed for sterile, controlled spaces where everything could be predicted and managed. But as he walked through the hanging gardens of New Canopy, watching human children play with creatures that his species had classified as deadly predators, he found his entire worldview shifting. "How is this possible?" he asked Dr. Park Jisoo as they watched a group of 10-year-old humans feeding what looked like a flying dragon with rainbow wings. Our records show that creature can bite through titanium armor. They can, Jisoo confirmed, but only when they feel threatened. The children learn to communicate with them using scent signals. The creatures are actually very gentle when they understand you're not trying to hurt them. Medical officer Yoon Dae-ho was treating a Zentari trader who had injured his arm in a fall. As he worked, he explained how the settlement's approach to the planet's wildlife had evolved over their 3 years of residence. At first, we were terrified of everything that moved, he said, applying a bandage made from processed tree bark. But we learned that most of the creatures here aren't evil or aggressive. They're just trying to survive like us. When we stopped treating them as enemies, they stopped treating us as threats. The inspection team's journey through New Canopy took them 5 days to complete. They rode cable cars between trees that housed entire neighborhoods. They visited schools where human and alien children learned together. They ate in restaurants built into living branches where the tables were carved from wood that was still growing. Engineer Kim Tae-hyung's masterpiece was the Central Hub, a structure that existed both inside and around a tree so massive that its trunk could have housed a small city. The building seemed to grow out of the tree itself, with walls that curved and twisted like natural branches. Inside, they found shops, offices, and meeting halls that felt more like forest clearings than traditional buildings. How do you maintain structural integrity when your building materials are still alive? Asked Counselor Yentha of the Wise. Builders. We don't maintain it, Tae-hyung explained with a grin. The tree maintains itself. Our job is just to make sure our additions don't interfere with the tree's natural processes. Sometimes the building changes shape as the tree grows. We just adapt our designs to match. The economic implications of the settlement were equally revolutionary. Navigator Choi So-min had become the settlement's trade coordinator, managing relationships with dozens of different species who had never interacted with each other before. New Canopy had become a neutral meeting ground where the planet's dangers forced cooperation over conflict. We had a territorial dispute between 2 trading fleets last month, So-min explained to the council team. They were ready to fight each other until an acid rainstorm hit. Both fleets had to take shelter in our city together. By the time the storm passed, they were sharing meals and comparing star charts. It's hard to stay angry at someone when you're both hiding from dissolving rain. Communications officer Song Hana had documented the growth of this unique culture in thousands of hours of video recordings. She showed the council team footage of wedding ceremonies where humans and aliens exchanged vows on platforms suspended between trees. She had recordings of children's birthday parties where the guests included species from 12 different star systems. We're creating something that has never existed before, she explained. Not a human colony with alien visitors, and not an alien station with human workers. This is a truly integrated community where everyone has to work together just to survive. Survival. Specialist Kang Ji-won had expanded her operations far beyond the original settlement. She now led mixed species teams on expeditions to other parts of Verdania 7, mapping the planet's resources and documenting its incredible biological diversity. We've found plants that can generate electricity, she told the fascinated council. Members. Trees that produce materials stronger than steel. Creatures that can survive in pure acid and show us how to improve our protective equipment. This planet isn't trying to kill us, it's trying to teach us. The inspection team's most profound experience came on their 4th day, when they witnessed what the humans called a forest conversation. Dr. Jisoo had learned to communicate with the trees themselves through chemical signals released into the air. The trees could share information about weather patterns, animal movements, and even the health of the soil hundreds of kilometers away. The entire forest is connected, she explained as sweet-smelling clouds drifted around the group. Every tree talks to every other tree. They share resources, warn each other about dangers, and work together to maintain the health of the whole ecosystem. We're not living on this planet. We're living as part of it. On their final day, the council members participated in a ceremony that had become a tradition for important visitors. They each planted a small tree that had been grown from seeds native to their home worlds. These alien trees would be tended by the forest and integrated into the planetary ecosystem, creating living monuments to interspecies cooperation. As the ceremony concluded, Councilor Zethra made an announcement that would echo across the galaxy. The Galactic Council hereby authorizes the establishment of the New Frontiers Initiative, she declared. We will provide funding and support for human-led expeditions to reassess 25 worlds that have been classified as uninhabitable. If humans can achieve what we have seen here on Verdania 7, we may have been wrong about many other worlds as well. The implications were staggering. Hundreds of worlds that had been written off as too dangerous might actually be suitable for human colonization. The galaxy's approach to exploration and settlement would need to be completely reconsidered. As the council ships prepared to leave New Canopy, the settlement's population had grown to over 3,000 residents, representing 47 different species. Children who had been born on Verdania 7 played in trees that their parents had climbed as desperate refugees just 3 years earlier. Captain Lee Minho stood on the observation deck of the central hub, looking out over a city that stretched through the forest canopy for 60 kilometers in every direction. Lights twinkled among the branches like stars. The sound of laughter and conversation drifted on the evening breeze. "What do you think?" asked Dr. Jisoo as she joined him. "Ready for the next challenge?" Minho smiled as he watched a group of teenagers from 6 different species racing through the tree branches on zip lines. "I think we've proven our point," he said. "Humans don't just survive impossible places. We turn them into home." 5 years after Captain Lee Minho had first climbed into the trees of Verdania 7, New Canopy had become the most famous human settlement in the galaxy. Standing on the grand platform that overlooked their impossible city, Minho could see the results of 5 years of human determination and alien cooperation. The settlement now stretched through the forest canopy for over 100 kilometers in every direction. More than 10,000 humans called it home, along with nearly 4,000 permanent alien residents from 63 different species. The city had grown in ways that defied traditional architecture. Engineer Kim Tae-hyung's designs had evolved from simple tree houses into structures that seemed to flow naturally through the forest, buildings twisted and curved with the branches that supported them. Walkways rose and fell like natural paths. The entire city felt more like a living organism than a collection of constructed buildings. "Population report, Governor," said Navigator Choi So-min as she approached with her daily briefings. Minho had been elected to serve as the settlement's governor for the 3rd time, a job that had grown far more complex as New Canopy became a major political and economic center. "We're at capacity again," she continued. "The waiting list for immigration permits is over 50,000 people. Representatives from 8 different planetary governments want to establish embassies here, and the Galactic Council is requesting permission to build a permanent research facility." The success of New Canopy had inspired similar projects across human space. Kim Tae-hyung's architectural techniques were being adapted for water worlds, where humans built floating cities that moved with the tides. On ice planets, they carved homes into glaciers that provided natural insulation. On desert worlds, they built underground cities that used geothermal energy for power. The principle remained the same everywhere humans went. Instead of fighting hostile environments, they learned to become part of them. Where other species saw impossible challenges, humans saw opportunities to create something new and beautiful. Dr. Park Ji-soo's Institute for Adaptive Biology had become the galaxy's leading research center for extreme environment colonization. Her teams were currently working on 14 different worlds, each presenting unique challenges that human creativity and alien knowledge were solving together. "The Frozen Moon project is showing remarkable progress," she reported to the morning council meeting. The human team has established contact with the ice creatures that live beneath the surface. They're learning to build cities inside the natural cave systems. What about the Acid Lakes world? Asked Medical Officer Yoon Dae-ho, who now served as the director of the galaxy's first interspecies medical center. The humans there have developed boats that can sail on liquid that would dissolve most metals, Jisoo replied. They're using processed algae from the lakes to create building materials that are actually stronger than traditional construction methods. The children of New Canopy represented the future of galactic civilization. Communications Officer Song Hana had documented their unique culture in a series of broadcasts that were watched throughout the galaxy. These children grew up speaking multiple alien languages as naturally as Korean and English. They played games that had been invented by mixing traditions from dozens of different worlds. Hana's daughter, now 12 years old, had never known a world where humans and aliens didn't live and work together. She attended school with Zentari, cubs, hive-drone younglings, and the flower-like children of the garden worlds. To her, the diversity was completely normal. "Mom, can I go swimming in the rain pools today?" she asked, as another acid rainstorm began outside their treehouse. "Only if you take your protective gear," Hana replied, though she knew her daughter could swim safely in water that would burn most adult aliens. The children born on Verdania 7 had adapted to their environment in ways that continued to amaze. Scientists throughout the galaxy. Survival specialist Kang Ji-won had expanded her operations far beyond a single planet. She now led the New Frontiers Initiative, which had successfully established colonies on 12 worlds that had previously been considered uninhabitable. Her teams included members from over 30 different species, all working together to prove that cooperation could overcome any environmental challenge. The Crystal Cave world is ready for its first permanent residents, she reported during the weekly exploration briefing. The Human Advance team has figured out how to grow food using the mineral deposits in the cave walls. The crystalline beings who live there have agreed to share their territory in exchange for human help in expanding their underground cities. Each new world brought new lessons and new partnerships. On the Storm Planet, humans had learned to build cities that could disassemble themselves when hurricanes approached, then rebuild automatically when the weather cleared. The local wind spirits, who had been hostile to previous visitors, actually helped guide the human construction teams to the safest locations. On the toxic marsh world, humans had discovered that the poisonous plants could be processed into medicines that cured diseases affecting multiple alien species. The slug-like natives of the world had become enthusiastic partners in pharmaceutical research, sharing knowledge that had been accumulated over thousands of years. As Minho stood on the grand platform watching another sunset paint the forest. Canopy in brilliant colors, he reflected on how much had changed since that first desperate climb into an unknown tree. New Canopy had become more than just a human colony. It had become proof that different species could work together to achieve things none of them could accomplish alone. The original 12 colonists still met every month for dinner in the same tree, where they had spent their first night on Verdania 7. The hollow space that had once seemed so large now felt cozy and familiar. They would share stories about the early days, when every storm was a potential disaster and every sound from the forest floor could mean death. "Remember when we thought 200 people would be a huge settlement?" Taehyung asked during their latest reunion dinner. "Remember when we thought the trees might reject us if we tried to build anything?" added Jisoo. "Remember when we thought we might all die on this planet?" said Yoon Dae-ho with a laugh. Minho looked around the table at his friends, the people, who had trusted him to lead them into the unknown and had worked together to build something impossible. They were older now, their hair touched with gray, their faces marked by years of hard work and constant challenges. But their eyes still held the same determined spark that had carried them through those first terrifying weeks. "What's next?" asked Soman. "The Council wants us to consider leading an expedition to the Dark Matter Nebula." They think there might be habitable worlds in there that no one has ever been able to reach. The dark matter nebula? Kang Ji-won said, with interest. That would be a real challenge. The gravitational fields there would crush most ships. The radiation levels would kill most species within hours. Sounds impossible, Taehyung said with his familiar grin. Good thing we're humans, Minho replied. As they talked and laughed late into the night, children played in the branches outside their window. Alien families walked along the lighted pathways between trees. Ships from across the galaxy arrived and departed from the busy spaceport platforms. The sounds of a thriving, diverse community filled the air. The jungle planet that had been labeled uninhabitable had become humanity's greatest success story. But more than that, it had become proof that the universe was full of possibilities, that most species were too afraid to explore. Humans, however, had never been afraid of the impossible. They had always believed that any challenge could be overcome with enough determination, creativity, and willingness to work together. Looking out over their incredible tree city as it sparkled in the light of 3 rising moons, Minho knew that humanity's greatest adventures were still waiting to be discovered among the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, and humans were very, very good at turning wonders into homes.